Hey, what is up, guys? It is the McMaster, and this is my new channel. I'll be, reviewing music, talking about music, and all that good stuff on this channel. If there's an album that you want me to review or a topic you want me to discuss, make sure you just leave a comment down below. I'll be looking at it. If there's an album you want me to review, no matter how old, because I gotta backtrack since this is a new channel. I'll review albums. I'll have music discussions, review singles, all of it. But today we are here with Jaden Smith's newest project, the electric version of SYRE, an EP, a five-track EP. Um, not very long. And my biggest complaint to start off is the the cohesiveness of the album. So even though all the songs sound the same and they are, generally within the same, uh, they fit on an album together. But the problem with the cohesiveness of the album is they all kind of sound the same. So if you didn't listen to Sire and you didn't recognize the original versions of these songs, you might be listening and think that you're just listening to one really long song because each song is barely unique. Probably the biggest switch up in anything is halfway through Icon when he changes the flow up of that, and that's one song, and that song by itself is more diverse than the past four songs coming before it. So that's definitely a huge problem, and I don't want to say that the instrumentals on this album are boring or sleepy, but they're kind of uninspired as to where they're good instrumentals, but there's just not enough going on, or they're not powerful enough to carry the song. Because on songs like B or Lost Boy, you'll hear large gaps in Jaden's vocals, and in those gaps, the instrumentals aren't loud enough, powerful enough, or hypnotizing enough to really draw you in. It just kind of feels like you're waiting for the next thing to happen. It's almost like building suspense, but it's very anticlimactic, and because of that, this album could be a bore to listen to if you're not in the right mood. Luckily, though, I did find some appreciation for this part of the album, as I've noticed that sometimes I like to listen to it when I go to sleep, and that's not to say that it's sleepy, but it's not like anything exciting. And I enjoy listening to the music. It's just not great. It's never something I want to listen to. Like if I'm sitting down, want to be chill. It's just there's no reason for me to listen to this because it'll you know not it's not interesting enough. Um, I do like though the take that he presents on Icon, where it's like the opposite of the song Icon, which is why it's Icon question mark. Whereas he says he's not an icon, and he goes into depth about why he's not an icon in case of like power failures or some natural disaster or something tragic were to happen. What is he gonna do? He's pretty much telling the listener that they have to take matters into their own hands, and as a little boy, that he, even as iconic as he may be, he shouldn't be your icon. And I like Jaden getting introspective because it felt like for a lot of Sire, the problem was that he was trying, but it didn't really connect. And even though it didn't super connect with me on this either, I felt like it got a lot closer than it did on Sire. So I enjoy seeing the improvement from album to album. But it still misses the mark a little bit. He needs to go a little bit deeper or make it more relatable somehow, because it all feels a little bit too far fetched and unrealistic to really connect with the listener. I mean, not to compare him to someone like a Kendrick Lamar because they're very different, but when you look at an album like To Pimp a Butterfly, that all connects very well. The subject matter, even if you can't relate to it, it definitely connects very well, and he paints the picture, and he really puts the image in your mind. And Jaden gets a lot closer with this, whereas he does everything he needs to connect the idea with the listener. But the problem is that it does he doesn't find a way to relate it to us. So whereas Kendrick Lamar, that's a very relatable subject, even if you can't relate to it. It's a lot easier to understand. Whereas his ideas are so far fetched, and that he makes no effort to relate it to the user. So if you're not within his mindset, it's very, I don't know, out there. It's just not a finished idea. He needed to probably change the script of that a little bit. And also, it was not that interesting with the lyrics to just hear him re-sing, the same cuts off of Icon. I was hoping that he would remake the songs, in which he did, but he didn't like rewrite them or anything. So like, you know, B, Lost Boy, you can go listen to any song off of SYRE and it's just the same thing except it has, you know, better production and more energy. It's just, I don't want to say it's bad though because it's not a hip hop album. It's an electronic album, and I do appreciate that. But I was listening to some electronic albums the other day, and it just doesn't. The production doesn't really meet that bar of electronic music, and I don't know how to categorize this album because it's like a rap album that's been electrified, and I feel like probably the biggest thing holding this album back, even though the subject matter is boring, even though when he tries to be deep it doesn't connect, and there's all these other problems with the album. I think the biggest thing that holds it back is its production. The production really does miss the mark because for an electronic album, it really should meet with other electronic albums because the selling point of those albums is the production, especially if you're an electronic artist that doesn't use vocals or vocal features and your songs are just instrumentals. And that talent in hooking a listener in with just the instrumental just it really isn't here. In fact, the instrumentals are probably one of the worst parts of the album. And Jaden's singing, no matter how uninspired and spacey it is probably the most interesting part of the album, and that says a lot about it because he's just droningly singing for a lot of them, like and that's what pretty much a lot of the electric version of B sounded like to me. It was that, and then you hear space, and then he does it again. And even though I enjoyed that song, it's just when I listen to that song and listen to the original version of B, and I listen to any electronic music, when you put it in perspective, it says that all of these songs they started off with great ideas and they had potential to be great, but Jane just couldn't deliver. The beats, or not the beats, but the instruments need to be more full. We need more of a full band type of thing. Like we can't just have this lonely electric guitar buzzing along for the whole song. Like we need you to change up the instruments, or we need more instruments, or we need something like because that wimpy guitar for the whole album, and these songs are so long. It's just so sleepy. And I hate saying that because I did enjoy this album to an extent, even though I have all these complaints about it. It just is a sleepy album. That's why I go to sleep listening to it. That's my best use for it. Because other music that I like to listen to is generally not this boring. And this is just one of the most boring albums I've ever listened to. And that's why I listen to it when I go to sleep. Off of a first or second listen, this album might be more exciting as you're still digesting some of the subject matter, especially on Icon, because that's really the only song where he dives anywhere deep in subject matter and gets slightly introspective. So maybe that's why it was more interesting to me on the first or second listen. But after that, it kind of felt like it was like a chore. It was like not interesting to listen to, not fun. Um, it was hard to do in one sit. I mean, often I'd listen halfway through a song and then want to listen to something else. I'd already be off of it, and it's just that's not good. The songs they need to be shorter. They need to be more concise. They need to be right to the point because if I'd say the songs were each about a minute to 2 minutes shorter, and they had the same amount of lyrics in them. So maybe the lyrics were delivered faster with more energy over maybe similar instrumentals, not quite the same. This album could have been great, but unfortunately, this 5 track EP is probably one of the most boring albums I've listened to, not just in 2018, but ever. And that's sad because I really, want to see Jaden Smith get better in the future. I mean, I enjoyed SYRE to an extent, even though there was a lot of stuff going on that, it was like, okay, whatever. But there were a couple tracks here and there that I still listen to, and I liked what he did with Tyler the Creator on Pothole, and his new track that came out a little bit before this, Ghost, was all right, even though it wasn't super creative or original. It was an all right track, and I hope to see Jaden moving forward in the future, but this here, not the move. And I actually would like to see what Jaden Smith could continue to do with electronic music in the future, but just not in this way, in a more creative way. I don't want to hear renditions of tracks that I've already heard. I want to hear new and creative and inspiring and interesting tracks. These were just not that in any way, shape, or form. And yeah, so if you need a good album to put you to sleep, here you go. This is the perfect album to listen for. But definitely keep your eyes on Jaden in the future because I do believe that he has a lot of potential and that he will get better with time. And maybe his next album will be the one that really breaks the ice with me. But yeah, that's it for this album. I don't know. I'm feeling strong 4, light 5. Tell me what you thought about this album if you listen to it. If not, listen to it. Tell me what you thought of it. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Tell me why in the comments. Yeah, that's Jaden Smith's SYRE Electric album.